Software developer. A strong engineer joining the right startup at the right stage gets paid in two currencies. Salary, which is good but not life-changing, and equity, which is worthless paper until it isn't. The wealth doesn't come from the paycheck. It comes from owning a sliver of something that goes from nothing to a real company. The catch is the word right, said 3 times in one sentence. Right company, right stage, right timing. Most startups don't make it. The engineer who joined the failed one worked the same hours as the one who joined the unicorn. For very different outcomes. B tier because the skill requirement is learnable and the upside is real. But the equity lottery does most of the heavy lifting. And lotteries have losers. Tech and SaaS sales. Sales is the most underrated lever on this list because it pays out now. Not someday. A good enterprise software salesperson closing 6-figure deals takes a cut of every contract signed. No equity vesting schedule. No waiting for an acquisition. The commission hits the same quarter the deal closes. The job filters hard before it pays well. Most people who try sales quit inside the first year. Because the income is brutally tied to performance and the rejection is constant. The ones who stay past year 2 are usually the ones who end up in the top bracket. B tier because the income ceiling is genuinely high and reachable on skill alone. But the floor is rough enough to push most people out before they get there. Prop trading. This is the job where the smartest person in the room gets paid like it. Prop trading desks and quant funds pay performance bonuses that can dwarf a regular salary several times over. Sometimes inside the first few years. The entry requirement is brutal. Top-tier math or computer science credentials. A hiring process designed to filter out almost everyone. And a job that can end abruptly if a strategy stops working. Junior traders at the top firms can clear total compensation north of $500,000 in a strong year. Bonus included. While the median new hire across the broader finance industry makes a fraction of that. The skill ceiling is enormous. And so is the rejection rate at the door. A tier because the payout for the people who make it through is some of the fastest wealth on this entire list. But the door is narrow enough that most readers of this sentence already know they're not walking through it. Real estate investing. Real estate runs on a different lever entirely. Leverage, in the literal financial sense. A modest down payment. Often as little as 20%. Controls an asset worth 5 to 10 times that amount. And the asset appreciates on its full value. Not just the part actually paid for. A property bought for $400,000 that gains 10% in value just handed the owner a $40,000 gain on an initial stake that might have only been $80,000. The danger hides in the same mechanism that creates the upside. The same leverage that multiplies gains multiplies losses just as fast. And a market downturn at the wrong moment can wipe out a position built on borrowed money. B tier because the math genuinely works for people who understand it and have capital to start with. But it requires capital most 25-year-olds don't have. Which quietly turns this into a path that favors people who already had a head start. Trade business ownership. An electrician or plumber who spends a few years learning the trade and then starts their own company is running a different play than the employee version of the same job. The employee gets paid for their own 2 hands. The owner gets paid for everyone else's hands too. This path doesn't require a degree, doesn't require venture funding, and doesn't require beating thousands of other applicants for one seat. It requires getting good at a skill the economy will always need. Then having the nerve to bill clients directly instead of collecting a paycheck from someone who already did. A tier because the ceiling is higher than people expect and the floor is more forgiving than a startup. But it takes years of unglamorous skill building most people aren't willing to sit through before the ownership math even becomes possible. Brand building. This is the path that gets the most attention online and produces the most quiet failures offline. A handful of people build a product, find an audience, and scale it into real revenue before 30. A much larger number spend 2 years and several $1,000s learning that traffic is expensive and margins are thin. The lever here is scale without needing anyone's permission first. No boss, no application, no gatekeeper. That's also exactly why so many people try it and why the failure rate is so high. Nothing stops you from starting. Almost nothing stops you from failing either. C-tier because the ceiling is uncapped for the rare winner. But the floor is a string of failed product launches that drained a bank account instead of building one. Content creation. Content creation pays the same way a lottery does. Except the ticket price is 2 to 3 years of unpaid effort instead of a few dollars. The people who break through can genuinely get rich before 30. Sometimes spectacularly so. The platform rewards reach. And reach compounds in a way a salary never will. What doesn't show up in the highlight reel is the much larger group who posted consistently for years and never broke through the algorithm's threshold for what counts as visible. Industry surveys consistently find that the overwhelming majority of creators on any platform earn close to nothing from it, while a tiny sliver at the top captures most of the ad revenue and brand deals. The skill required isn't really filming or editing. It's surviving years of silence before any payoff arrives. If it arrives at all. C-tier because the upside is the most viral of anything on this list. But the odds are closer to the e-commerce tier than anyone selling a course about it wants to admit. The counter-objection. Here's the part where someone points out that income isn't the same as wealth. Fair, and worth saying clearly. A surgeon's salary looks impressive and still loses to a plumber who owns 3 trucks and invests what's left over. Because spending habits beat income almost every time over a long enough stretch. A high earner who upgrades the car, the apartment, and the lifestyle every time the paycheck grows ends up with a bigger number on a pay stub and the exact same zero in savings as someone making a third as much. Every path on this list also comes with a survivorship problem. The quant trader you heard about made it through a hiring funnel that rejected hundreds of equally smart applicants. The content creator you follow is one success story standing on top of thousands who posted into silence for years. None of these paths are as repeatable as they look from the outside. And that's not a flaw in the analysis. It's the actual shape of the data. The pattern. Strip away the job titles and the pattern underneath is the same lever, pulled 4 different ways. Skill turns into leverage when it's rare enough that the market pays a premium for it. Capital turns into leverage when it's deployed into an asset that grows faster than the loan attached to it. Risk turns into leverage when enough of it gets absorbed that the rare win outweighs the much more common loss. Scale turns into leverage when one unit of effort reaches far more people than a single paycheck ever could. Nobody on this list got rich by working harder in a linear sense. They got rich by finding a lever that multiplied the same hour of work into something bigger than the hour itself. Conclusion. None of these paths are guaranteed. And that's the part the headline version always leaves out. What they share is a structure that makes getting rich mathematically possible before 30. Instead of mathematically impossible. Which is the actual starting position for a fixed hourly wage with no leverage attached to it at all. The choice isn't really which job to pick off this list. It's which lever you're willing to spend years getting good at pulling, long before anyone else can see it's about to pay off.